You were doing something ordinary, weeding perhaps, or just standing at the kitchen window with your coffee, half watching the garden come to life. The blue tits were at the feeder. A blackbird was moving through the grass. The robin was somewhere in the hedge. You could hear it, even if you couldn't see it. And then, nothing. All of them, at exactly the same moment. Gone. Not one by one, not gradually, at once. You felt it before you understood it. Your body registered something, a shift, a drop in the air, before your mind caught up. You went still without deciding to. That instinct was not a mistake. What happened in your garden in that moment was not random. It was not nothing. It was, in fact, one of the most precise and legible things your garden has ever communicated to you. Stay with me. Welcome to Garden Bird Secrets. If you're new here, subscribe, because what you're about to learn will change every morning you spend in your garden. In this video, I'm going to take you through 6 things that silence is telling you, each one more precise than the last. By the end, you'll know where the danger was, what kind it was, how long it lasted, and this is the part that changes things. What it means that you were standing there when it happened. Stay until the end, because the final point is the one worth carrying with you. For centuries, people who worked the British countryside, farmers, gamekeepers, those who spent their days outdoors in all weather, passed down a single piece of knowledge that required no explanation. When the birds go quiet, pay attention. Not as superstition, as practice. As something learned through watching the same fields and gardens season after season until the pattern became impossible to miss. This is something British people have felt for centuries. Now we have language for why. Here is the first thing to understand. The silence does not begin everywhere at once. It begins in one place, and it spreads. If you were to slow down the moment, frame by frame, you would see it ripple outward from a single point. The birds nearest to the source of threat fall silent first. Then the next ring out. Then the next. All of this happens so fast that it registers to us as simultaneous. But it is not. It is a wave. The naturalist and tracker John Young spent decades documenting this phenomenon across wild habitats. He describes it as a cascade, an alarm signal that travels through an entire community of birds in less than 2 seconds, spreading outward from whatever triggered it. The BTO's long-term garden surveys have recorded the same pattern in domestic settings. The collapse of bird song in a garden is directional, even when it appears total. In your garden, this means the silence has an origin point. It started somewhere. The birds closest to that place went quiet first. If you had been paying attention to which corner of your garden fell silent half a breath before the rest, you would have known exactly where to look. The blue tit and the blackbird do not speak the same language. They have different calls, different alarm signals, different social structures. In almost every meaningful sense, they are strangers to one another. And yet, when one of them falls silent, the other does too. Immediately. Researchers at the Australian National University, led by Robert McGrath, investigated this phenomenon and found something that fundamentally reframes how we think about birdsong. Birds across different species, species with no shared evolutionary history, no common call structure, have developed the ability to read each other's alarm signals as fluently as their own. The technical term is heterospecific alarm call recognition. What it means in practice is this. Your garden birds have built a shared warning network across species lines. Stay with me, because this next part changes everything. The blue tit at your feeder does not need to see the threat itself. It only needs to notice that the blackbird 3 meters away has gone quiet in a particular way. That is sufficient. The signal travels across the language barrier in less time than it takes you to register that anything has changed. In your garden, this means the silence is collective in a way that is not accidental. Every species present, every blue tit, every sparrow, every robin in the hedge, is connected into a single information system. When that system shuts down, all at once, something has reached every part of it simultaneously. This is the point I want you to hold on to most carefully. The silence in your garden is not just a signal that something is wrong, it is a map. And if you know how to read it, you can use it in real time. Research by Daniel Blumstein at UCLA, studying flight initiation distances and alarm propagation in wild bird populations, established a model that naturalists like John Young had been using empirically for years. Animals do not respond uniformly to a threat. They respond in concentric rings. The birds closest to the source of danger react first and most severely. The birds further away react slightly later and slightly less severely. The result is a pattern that radiates outward, like dropping a stone into still water. In your garden, this means the silence has a shape you can read. If you were to pay attention not just to when the silence falls, but to where it seems deepest, where it feels most absolute, you would be locating the source of what triggered it. The next time the silence comes, turn slowly. Turn toward the corner of your garden where it feels most complete. Not toward the noise, because there is none. Toward the absence. That is where your garden's alarm system is telling you to look. You are reading a map. You have always been able to read it. You just didn't know the language. Not all silences say the same thing. The length of the silence carries as much information as the silence itself. Christopher Templeton and his colleagues at the University of Washington studied alarm call systems in several species, including great tits closely related to those visiting UK gardens, and documented something that holds across species and habitats. Birds encode urgency into their alarm signals. The faster the threat, the more compressed and sharp the call, or in extreme cases, the faster the complete collapse into silence. And critically, the duration of the silence reflects the duration of the threat. In your garden, this translates to something precise. A silence that lasts under 30 seconds. The threat moved through. It was fast. Aerial. A sparrowhawk cutting across the garden in a single pass. The birds knew before it arrived. They went quiet. They waited. It passed. And they recovered quickly because the threat itself was brief. A silence that stretches past 2 minutes. The threat is still there. Somewhere in your garden, something is not moving. Something is waiting. A cat in the undergrowth. A fox that has not yet decided which direction to take. The birds will not call again, not a single one, until whatever it is has gone. If you've ever wondered why your garden sometimes stays quiet for what seems like a strangely long time, now you know. Something was still there. The birds knew. And they waited. There is one visitor to the British garden that triggers this silence more reliably and more completely than anything else. Not a cat, not a fox, the sparrowhawk. The RSPB's long-term monitoring data documents sparrowhawks visiting garden feeding stations across the UK with a frequency most garden owners would find startling. In suburban and rural gardens with established feeders, sparrowhawk visits are not exceptional events. They are regular ones, often daily, sometimes multiple times a day. Most of the time, you never see it. But your birds do. The sparrowhawk does not announce itself. It approaches at low altitude, below fence height in many cases, using hedgerows, walls, and your own shrubbery to remain hidden until the final moment. It can reach speeds of over 50 kilometers per hour in the final approach. The birds at your feeder have, on average, less than a second to respond once the sparrowhawk clears the last piece of cover. They survive because they don't wait to see it. They detect the disturbance it creates as it moves, the alarm cascade from gardens nearby, the displacement of smaller birds along its flight path, and they shut down entirely before it arrives. If you've ever stood in your garden and felt the silence fall, you were not imagining it. What you felt was the outer edge of that wave. The sparrowhawk was already in the system before you registered anything at all. Your garden does not simply fall silent. It also announces when it is safe again. You've heard it. You almost certainly haven't known what you were hearing. Research by Indrikis Krams and his colleagues, studying alarm recovery sequences in Eurasian nuthatches and tits, documented the pattern by which a silenced community of birds returns to normal. It does not happen all at once. It begins with a single call, small, tentative. One bird, almost always a smaller species, a great tit or a blue tit in UK gardens, will issue a brief contact call into the silence. Not an alarm, not a territorial song, just a small sound that says, "I'm still here." If nothing happens, if the silence absorbs that call without consequence, another bird responds. Then another. The pattern cascades in reverse, sound returning outward from the point where danger was deepest, spreading through the garden in the same wave structure as the silence that preceded it. In your garden, this means you have a second signal available to you, one you may have been filtering out as irrelevant background noise. That first hesitant call after a long silence is not just a bird resuming its routine. It is a declaration. The garden is safe again. The next time you notice the silence end, pay attention to what you hear first and where it comes from. You are hearing your garden clear itself. There is one last thing. And it is the thing I've been building toward. Everything I've described so far assumes you are watching the silence from outside, as an observer, as someone trying to decode a system that exists independently of you. That is true. But it is not the whole truth. BTO habituation data from long-term garden bird studies documents something that most garden owners sense but rarely articulate. The birds that visit your garden regularly have adjusted their alarm threshold for you specifically. Over weeks, over months of seeing you move through the same space, of hearing your voice, of watching you refill the feeder and dig the borders and stand with your coffee in the morning, they have recalibrated you, removed you from the threat category, filed you quietly as something known. Which means this: when the silence falls in your garden, while you are standing in it, it is not falling because of you. You have been exempted. The birds are not warning each other about you. They are warning each other about something else, something that entered the space you share with them. And in going silent around you, in treating you as part of the known and trusted landscape, they have, without ceremony, included you. The robin is usually the last to go silent. It is a territorial bird, resistant to being silenced by anything short of a direct threat. But when it does go quiet, when even the robin stops, pay attention to that. And when the silence breaks, listen for what calls first. Often, in a British garden, it is the robin again, the last to fall silent and the first to say that things are all right. I'll leave you to sit with what that means. Many of you have a specific moment in mind right now, a particular morning, a garden that went quiet in a way you've thought about since. Some of you know exactly which corner it came from. Some of you already knew, without knowing that you knew, to turn and look. Those moments are worth something. They are worth more than we usually give them credit for. Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. These are the stories I carry with me longest. I'll see you in the garden.